Hey, I have to say I'm like I get nervous when I have to bring in another camera situation into the thing and try
Yeah.
to interact with it. It's one thing to like play videos and whatnot. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. We're going to start the radio show in just a moment. You'll hear it all begin. There's Johnny Million. I'm Hal Sparks. Stream is beginning. I do have a pet peeve that I can't find a solution for other than a good startup screen for when a stream starts, especially when it's hi guys when it's the software companies. I've watched so many videos on how to stream live with software, just working on stuff. And there's so many of it shows the owner of the company and their one of their like producing or tech
I have
people.
come here to chew
And they're going,
bubble
I
gum
think we're
and
on. I think we're live. I think we're on. I think we're live. I'm like,
get all out of bubble.
Live
here we go.
exclusively for WCPT in Chicago, standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Happy Saturday to you. It is a new year, a new show, a new thing, a new window into life. We enter, of course, 2021 with a mixture of relief and trepidation as we all wonder whether or not Trump will go quietly into the good night of retirement. Will jumpstart the Apprentice as a YouTube series and get sued by NBC, if he'll indeed see jail time once he has to be deposed somewhere around June. Mark your calendar. I'm just saying. And we are still dealing with an ongoing epidemic that right about the time we get as many of you know, we have four vaccines working their way into the system. Yeah. Two of which are coming online and are currently in production. The Johnson & Johnson one allegedly coming on in January, which only requires one dose. Thank you, Hal Vickery, for the super chat right out of the gate. Bless you.
I heard the Johnson & Johnson one also smells powdery fresh.
It does, absolutely. Although I am looking forward to 8 years from now, the ad, did you take the Johnson & Johnson thing? You could get cervical cancer. Like the talcum powder. Like, all the
the hernia mesh that all of a sudden I have installed in me.
Right, yeah. Exactly. All of that's enough to be nervous about. And probably one of the difficulties of caused by the insistence of calling the program to speed up the vaccines Operation Warp Speed.
Captain's log.
Which is what we always say when we talk about Operation Warp Speed. We have
Captain's log.
There, because Operation Fartsteed, as we call it affectionately on the regular streaming show, one of the downsides is the impression that it has given that it was rushed. And throughout that, that's why marketing and focus groups and stuff like that seem ridiculous until you actually need them. Until you've had 4 or 5 failed rollouts or no one likes the ending of your movie 6 times in a row. You start going, maybe we should show this to people who aren't us for a second. Yep. Thank you, Billy Hutchins. The Hal Sparks. Chuck Todd finally realized after 4 years that alternative facts and GOP disinformation equals lying fund. We hope he's bringing on Ron Johnson tomorrow. That's, there's a lot of,
Is Chuck Todd one of those that acts like anything people says is news and he doesn't call them out in real time?
Yes. He is also one of these guys who's edges on being a Republican as far as the group that's on MSNBC at any given time. So he sees himself as playing footsie with that part, which if you're conservative isn't the problem. If he viewed himself as, well, I'm a Democrat or I'm a conservative Democrat or I'm a liberal Republican or whatever, and I vacillate, that's not so much the problem. The problem is that creating that vibe for himself includes bringing on people like Kellyanne Conway and Ron Johnson. You know what I mean? That's not the same.
Which one's
thing.
Ron Johnson? I'm sorry, I need
Ron
help
Johnson is Putin's own senator currently. He's one of the group of 8 that went.
Oh, yes.
spent 4th of July with Putin in Russia 2 years ago, and is the main conduit by which Russian disinfo gets into the public record. He's it. He's the guy who reads it into committee hearings and brings it up specifically for that process. And again, very exciting show today, and a good way to start off the year. In that Frank Figliuzzi is going to be with us in the second hour, promoting his book called The FBI Way, which is his book on leadership using the principles that he learned in the FBI. And he was, interestingly enough, and we'll talk about this with him, but he was not just an agent and a special agent. He was in the OPR, the Office of Professional Responsibility. He was the guy who, he's like, not quite IA, I wouldn't call it, but the people who review, behavior by agents that end up getting kicked out, censured, suspended, with and without pay, all those things. He had to go through that process. It's a very important
sounding department.
It's incredibly important. It also is. He is, in a situation, in any human organization, you're gonna have a fail rate. The fail rate in the FBI is somewhere around 2%. In that they have about 2% of agents a year get some sort of mark on their record or called before some panel and reviewed, and that's a wide variety of stuff, from a serial killer saying that they're being followed by the FBI, a la like Mindhunter. If any of you watch that, those guys got called in front of the bureau's OPR because a guy that turned out to be guilty, who'd killed dozens of black children in Atlanta, was saying that they were harassing him, that kind of thing. And, it goes from that end of the spectrum to people who are absolutely, God forbid, on the take or any of those kind of things. There's a wide variety of things. And Frank Figliuzzi was, is one of the gatekeepers of the standards of the FBI. And that's a lot of weight, and it's a lot, and it takes a lot of integrity to sit in that position and make those kind of decisions. It's fascinating. I look forward to talking to him. I pre-ordered the book, even though, like other radio hosts, get pre-copies, I'm just saying, of people's books. Not me. And by the way, I'm being a little silly about this, in that I personally believe in buying the books.
Sure.
It's a thing. It's just a thing there's been a couple of times in my life where people have, Michael Ian Black's book, A Better Man. Michael, offered to send me a copy of the book, and I just went out and bought it out of respect for him and the fact that I think he's a decent human being. And
it's a vote. You're voting for that product.
Exactly. And when I hold it up and I show people, like when I do my little Instagram post that I finished, Michael Ian Black's book, I don't want to get people in trouble, but it means I've actually read it, and I've actually finished. I didn't get it, but the day it comes out, I finished his book, and it's fantastic. Like, no, I read it over time, like people do, But anyways, by the way, I recommend the book, as you do, and one day we'll have Michael Ian Black on after the 20th, when we're talking about sort of depth of ideas in these situations. And
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, won't it? So obviously there's a couple of things that we will deal with. One, of course, is, and they have not released the name, is I believe it was a Wisconsin pharmacist who wrecked.
Oh, what the hell? What the hell is this? I need you to explain it to me.
Okay, so the headline on this thing, which I think draws a lot of attention, was tampered with 57 vials of the vaccine, of the Moderna vaccine. Tampering sounds very scary when you use that word, right? And I would say to my friends in the news industry, using that word is different than what this guy did. He spoiled them. He ruined them intentionally. He left. I mean, he did not add a chemical. Most of us, when we think of tampering with something like that, at least in terms of reading it in a headline, and maybe that's the clickbait reason why they use the word, but the reason we think of that is because of Tylenol. Recall the poisoning of Tylenol, which is why everything has 2 safety seals on it.
Were you in the Chicago area yet when that happened, or was it a little before you showed up?
No, it was. I think was about when we were 11 or 12 years old, I think.
Yeah.
I came to Chicago when I was 14. So that was a couple years later, and it was very different.
It was creepy.
Yeah,
I remember just walking around Dominic's, like looking at like you just trusted everything before then. It was like the end of innocence.
That's right. And now it's why even juice, if you open it, has that secondary seal on the inside of it because it was too easy to puncture and add to it.
Because they caught me spitting in there.
Oh, did they? You were an ice cream licker? Ew. Yeah, but that was just drool. That wasn't really.
I do like that you gave me a courtesy ew.
Yeah, right. So this guy, the headlines are saying tampered with, but in reality, he spoiled them. And we do not have a full measure of what this circumstance is. They're not releasing the man's name, which I think is a good idea considering I would argue that the charge should be attempted murder for this gentleman because he intentionally spoiled the vaccine. What he did was he left it out intentionally out of refrigeration.
I found somebody who found him.
Pardon?
I found somebody who did the research and found him, like by the charges and the name, and then like.
Oh, sure, right, and they filed it. Yeah. Well, I don't have a problem with releasing his name in that case in the news. They just hadn't at that point in the stories that I've been reading. But I would argue attempted murder because his idea was he wanted to spoil. This is insofar as the information that I have, and it's very hard to tell that. I thought the pharmacist left out 500 of them overnight to spoil them. Yes, that's what he did. There were 500 and.
Is it like the deep freeze version?
It was 57 vials that contained 10 doses worth each. So there were 570 doses that were spoiled because he left those vials out and allowed them to spoil. They only have to be out of refrigeration for 6 hours. And all the people who got those doses had to be informed that they were possibly less covered and had to come back in and get another dose. And this guy, the reasoning behind this is fascinating because this guy wanted people to believe, and we got to take a break, and we'll be back right after this. 773-763-9278 is our number, of course. You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, MegaWorldwide. The reason that he gave for doing this was he wanted people to think it didn't work. Well, it didn't. It didn't lose efficacy because it was of its own dysfunction. And if he believed it didn't work or wanted people to believe it didn't work, then give it to them and watch it not work if he believed that in his own head. But spoiling it intentionally means that he was sabotaging it. He was not tampering with it. He sabotaged the vaccine for up to 570 people. If any of those people got sick and accrued medical bills, that's on him. If any of them died, that's on him. If anyone in that 570 group, which is a large group of human beings, carried that disease, after catching it thinking that they would have some protection against it, to someone else who died, that's his fault. That is at the base depraved indifference, which is probably what they will plead him to as far as a murder charge goes. Or
depraved
attempted
indifference?
Murder. Depraved indifference. You don't care if somebody dies. It's like the same thing if like you fire a gun in an argument, you get discharge of a firearm in a public place, even if you fire in your house because it goes through the wall into your neighbor's house and you could have killed them.
Or like shooting an arrow straight up and running like hell.
No, that's just being stupid by yourself. That's just
a stupid teenager.
That's just trying to be on that idiotic MTV show that's kind of America's Funniest Home Videos for Gen Xers. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah, they didn't charge him, Gonzo. They did indeed. They are charging the guy. I don't know what the full charge is. Yeah, he's from Wisconsin. Yeah. So
you can tell I'm bringing my A game because we've got a guest and
you're
talking about drool and teenage pranks.
Yeah, so if he checks in on the show at the beginning, he'll go, "Oh God, what did I get myself into?" Right.
What have we done?
This is what happens. Audio, turn it up. Okay, is the audio down? Let's see. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's a little lower because of other stuff. There you go. Is that a little better, guys? There you go.
Check 1, 2.
Yeah, that's better. Okay. That's better. Okay. I think that should be solid, guys. Sorry about that. I think that was part of a. I can't wait to actually have somebody who could actually in the room with the check the audio.
Is that going to happen?
Eventually. I mean, obviously post COVID, but that would be nice. So, anyways, I'm excited about this. The book is CSL. If you want to look it up, it's the FBI Way. It comes out on the 12th, I think, and it's on Amazon already. It's you can pre-order it on Amazon. I got it on Apple Books.
Apple.
Where I get most of my hardcover. And let's see why. Oh, hold on one second. I know why you guys are turned on. Hold on. Check. There we go. Now we should be about the same ballpark. There we go. All right. Now it's not. It shouldn't be too overheated.
Back in 15 seconds.
Excellent. Thank you. And who's that working today, by the way?
It's Paul.
Hey, Paul. How are you? I thought so, but I wanted to check. Good to see you. Welcome.
Paul.
Glad to have you.
It's okay. I always get confused for Devin anyway. So how are you? Happy New Year.
I'm good. Yeah, well,
you are Devin-esque.
Yeah, you are very Devin-esque. Although, when you're operating on 6 words, and I still went.
Take offense to that.
That's not Devin. There he is.
We're back.
Freak me out, man.
We're just having a conversation with the board ops, with Paul and Devin hanging out.
The show goes and goes.
It goes and goes and goes, and that's why we live stream everywhere, so you can hear all the the bells and whistles, the sausages being made as we stream on YouTube at infotainmentwars.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Of course, halsparks.live. I also bought some other URLs to bounce. Infotainmentwars.com has been a great way for people. I used it as a way to forward stuff to, this long, sprawling YouTube URL that they give you that's useless, Whenever people have to deal with those kind of things, it's often, you feel like your grandmother explaining the World Wide Web in 1997. Like, it's HTTP.
Man, as soon as somebody starts giving me a web address and they use the letter H, I'm like, all right, we got to cut to the chase here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just everything after www. We're good. I got that part. And I know to add the S to HTTP to secure it. I get. All right. So, and over the course of, being on multiple sites, like at twitch.tv/HalSparks, that's pretty easy, but it'd be nice to do something zingy. So,
you see my kitty?
Yes, we see your cat in the background. But they can't hear it on the radio. You got to understand. We still are. It's the theater of the mind, I suppose.
My kitty. Okay. So for those of you who can't see my kitty, it's stripy and adorable.
It is on a brown seat behind you and barely visible to everyone but you. So this fellow that I bring up, and did you find out what his name was, Johnny Million? This guy, the Wisconsin pharmacist?
I'm afraid to. I think, like off the top of my head, I think it's Steve Johansson. But let me double check.
Yeah, don't randomly take a name off.
Just throw it out there.
No, let's not. One of the things this is a real world example of trickle down idiocy. You wonder why politicians use political speech. You wonder why, performers end up having PR firms shaping their language after a while. You think, why can't you just speak off the cuff? Why can't you just say what you mean? Why can't people just say their piece and people understand that this is exactly what they mean? And, people aren't dumb, they'll get it. And then after a few rounds with someone like Trump in office, where he just says whatever he feels like saying at any random time, and then eventually what that does is, with the trickle-down idiocy, ends up with a guy in Wisconsin, a pharmacist, spoiling vaccine doses so that he can prove the vaccine doesn't work by making sure it doesn't work. Like the QAnon level moronic intellect working here is stunning, but not surprising. And in the same way that apparently right now, Trump is really freaking out about Mike Pence currently. This is word on the street, in DC or what have you, is that he's really grinding his teeth about Mike Pence because he's been talked into by the intellectual heavyweights around him, Louis Gohmert, Rudy Giuliani et al., that Mike Pence is his last hope of flipping the election and retaining the presidency. Let me just cut to the chase and not be clickbaity with you because I adore you and your time is valuable. That's not going to happen. All this wailing and gnashing of teeth on Tuesday will be a big waste of time. It is the certified electoral college votes will be read by Mike Pence. They will be certified as read. There will be some, noise made in the House and Senate, but it will amount to nothing. It will largely like the veto of the NDAA, which was overturned. And we will get into the value of that bill getting cleared, not just in terms of its military payment, military families, contracts, and all those kind of things that need to be handled so that we have a readiness worldwide and for our own security, but because of some of the other things added to that, not the least of which is brand new laws on money laundering.
Yeah.
Brand new laws. I would argue that is the primary reason why Trump wanted the NDAA over, the veto to happen. That during the, freaking out about the Section 230, which is madness on its own front. I mean, honest to God. It's as simple as this.
He wouldn't be able to tweet.
No. If there had been no Section 230, there would, first of all, be no Facebook. There would have never been a MySpace. There would be no Twitter. There would be, and Donald Trump would not be president. Must be abundantly clear. Twitter was his arm by which he wiggled his way into the zeitgeist as far as, being politically relevant through his tweets over time. And Facebook was his primary way of advertising and growing a crowd. So the combination of Twitter and Facebook was exactly how Donald Trump became president. Fox, and some would argue that, Fox News was a part of that. Absolutely. But it was a part of that in the same way that Fox News was part of getting George W. Bush elected. There's a wholly different thing that makes someone categorically unqualified to become president, like Donald Trump, get to be president, that sits right on the shoulders of social media. And the weaponization of social media by foreign actors through bot farms and all that kind of stuff that gives you the illusion that the twofold illusion of social media. And we've talked about this a bunch on my show, and it's why you take very seriously who you like and retweet. It's why you don't, when a video comes up in your feed that outrages you, that starts in the middle of something, you should check before you retweet it, no matter how offensive you believe it to be, right? Because you do not want your own genuine empathy, your genuine care for other human beings to be weaponized by somebody that means it ill. So, there are tons of these, just Twitter accounts that are all cat videos until an election comes around. And then they start pumping your feed full of anti-vaxxer stuff or Democrats or communist stuff. And that's because that's how they get in. That's, they appear as normal until it's time to act. It's sort of like sleeper cell versions of social media accounts, right? Really low end spy work. But by volume, it has an impact. And I would argue that the iReport aspect of CNN and other, networks in the beginning of social media, especially around Twitter and Facebook, when hashtagging and names started coming out, when the minute CNN started putting, at, Hatbox 2020 or whatever, random name, not a human being that they're aware of, not a verified account, not somebody that they know, not a reporter who tweets under that name, but a random user that, they'll read it. Twitter is saying this, and here's a user saying this. The minute CNN started doing that about 8-10 years ago, at this point, which is amazing that it goes back that far. That was the dinner bell for people to mess with it. That was foreign actors and enemies of the country and of democracy, foreign and domestic, recognized that was an easy in. All you had to do was say part of the right thing, make sure you tweeted to the right people enough times, and eventually you'd find your tweet on CNN. And the followers that came with that would be like sort of tacit verification. You wouldn't get a blue check by it, but the fact that CNN had run it is in their iReport or what have you was one of the reasons why people took it seriously. We have to take a break already. The show is just breezing by. In the next hour, Frank Figliuzzi is going to join us to talk about his book, The FBI Way, which I started this morning because he was coming on, and I was like, I'm just going to go get it. And you have to pre-order it. I got it on Apple iBooks, but I started reading it. And there's a bunch of fascinating stuff. He has amazing stories to tell. And we'll talk to him in the next hour, but we'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
What?
I know that riff now.
I've got to go move my laundry.
Is that, please,
I said it.
Please tell me that's not a euphemism.
It is literal. I'm moving my laundry from the washer to the dryer.
Phew! All right, we're going to talk about
my laundry by hand. All
right, good. That's great. Then I'll be by myself. It's just me in the chat. We don't need you. Hi, chat room. We don't need Johnny Million. We're just happy to be here. What's up, the prof? Quit it. Thank you, Billy, again, by the way, and good to see you with us today. Benny Loco, much love to you and your husband. Hope are you doing well? How's things? Let me know. Are you good? I worry about you. I do. So let us know. And by the way, I'm probably going to do a dual stream today, because I have some leftover stuff from before the holiday that I wanted to jump on that deals with what's going to happen Tuesday with some Rudy Giuliani stuff and some other things, because this is the last gasp of this nonsense. So I'm going to do that. If you can't stand it and you don't need to see it, you don't have to come on. But I'll be back on at the sort of the regular time this afternoon at 3. We do like people with clean laundry, Brad. Absolutely. Morning, D. Hello, Tom.
Back in 20.
Excellent. Cool. So
This is Doris Davenport, host of The Doris Davenport Show. All local, all the time. Now let's get back to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back to the show. So one of the things that shouldn't surprise anyone is that Donald Trump's ire is both narrowing and expanding at the same time. Over the course of the last month and a half since the election, as it has become increasingly clear to even Trump himself that all is lost, that he failed miserably, that as the Electoral College got certified state to state, as Secretary of State after Secretary of State repeatedly had to go on television and remind people that they had done recounts, signature checks. They did signature checks in Georgia that came back with a 99.99% accuracy on all of them, and not a single vote was found to be fraudulent. It just was there was 0.1%, 0.01% where there was some disagreement between people in the computer, and ultimately it was a real voter and they kept it. Like the absurdity that they're standing on. And the volume of people talking about this stuff, I would just like to remind everyone that this is part and parcel to, and welcome back, Johnny. He's been messing with his laundry,
Yes,
as you do on a Saturday morning. Well, you're a runner, so you're going to have more than most.
I have so much, especially in the winter.
Sure, absolutely, because you're both sweaty and grimy from the snow and dirt and stuff and splashing.
And just more clothes.
Yeah, that's true. Layers. So what I was saying was, in kind of leading from what I was talking about the volume of, and ringing the dinner bell for trolls and troll farms, and that going from wow, I can be anonymous and mess with people individually online idea that a bunch of, that maybe as many as tens of thousands of people worldwide had at the same time, not surprising, that it went from, oh yeah, there's an industry in this. Oh, we can pretend to be watching videos. We can pretend to be following people. Oh, you can sell fake followers online. And you have people, that where when a artist's new album comes out, the label buys them 500,000 extra followers in the lead up to it coming to create an artificial algorithm boost so they get up into the top tier so that more people see the album come out than would if they just had the fans that they had, right? And whether those fans are fake or not later, it does translate to real sales, because without those fake fans, you don't get to trend, as it were. And so weaponizing trending for monetary gain followed immediately after as well. And then, of course, the ability to do subterfuge that the Russians and the Iranians and the Chinese and the North Koreans have allegedly been working on for ages really did coalesce under Trump, because he was a willing participant in it, clamored for it. And you had, and this is, I think, the crucial thing for our listeners to understand and to remind themselves of regularly, is that it wasn't just that they boost your enemy's ideas, that they create bot farms that support everything that Trump says, which is clearly a huge part of it. Whenever Twitter would do a random bot cleansing, anytime they would go through and they go, we know what the algorithm is that shows us that these are fake accounts. They tweet the same thing across multiple accounts, word for word. They are cut and paste accounts. If we see that enough, we see them do that 6 or 10 times, we're pretty sure that's a bot, right? You can go by some of the name when they're all created on the same day. They all have the same birthday and they all print the same thing. Those kind of things. When they did those kind of cleanses, moments after those cleanses would happen, you would see like some celebrities go, hey, I just lost about 1,000 followers. That was weird. Yeah. And you'd see people like Donald Trump go, I'm losing 1 million followers a second, and it's because of the volume of fake followers that they have supporting that. And yes, that's a part of it. The other thing we learned about the social media strategy of Russia specifically was that they would create fake Black Lives Matter accounts and fake Women's March accounts and fake pro-Hillary accounts and fake Obama accounts and those kind of things to lead all the people who do believe that thing into a corral, essentially, before setting it on fire. And the way they do that is by creating a group, being incredibly supportive, saying all the right things for long enough, and then primarily putting poison pills of, suggestions of violence over, really bulldozing of sort of an upscale level of cancel culture that is just brutalizing everyone for every little misstep to make it look like the left is full of crazies and the like right before the election, that it is ratcheting up and giving Fox News and other places evidence, like one of the biggest Black Lives Matter accounts on Facebook was saying we should burn this down, right? That kind of thing. It is the same problem that is in many ways going on in Portland, Oregon right now, in that the Oregon mayor, in an attempt to kind of listen to the concerns of people he perceives to be Antifa or people speaking up as Antifa, have rung a dinner bell for the, Proud Boys and other groups who know that all you have to do is dress in black and throw the right stuff at the right building. The Antifa people that are there will basically give you cover to do whatever you want because you're hiding amongst them and they don't know. They can't know. Everyone's dressed in black. Everyone's wearing a balaclava. How am I supposed to know? It creates an opening for Asian provocateurs to make Antifa look like exactly what Fox wants and OAN and Newsmax want them to look like. That's the problem. That's why armies end up wearing uniforms. It's why over time, you don't think we all, every fighting group from every village dressed as dark as they could to go into somebody else's thing, or dressed like them to infiltrate them, until they realize, like, this is offsides. We, the British, are now going to wear red coats just to be fair. It's us, right? So this is incredibly important to remind, people on both sides of the aisle, and especially people who consider themselves in the middle, and this links into kind of the Chuck Todd idea, is that in Chuck Todd's idea that, like, we're going to have a balanced show here. We're going to allow some conservative voices and some liberal voices and some progressives and some right-wing voices to get together. That what that ends up being is that because ratings are a part of that game and you're trying to sell toilet paper and back pills during the breaks, you're going to call people in to your show like Ron Johnson as opposed to Ben Sass or others who might have a balanced conversation about the needs and wants of the conservative constituency and what they really want versus the real, fire and brimstone incendiary rhetoric of the far right, which will always make people hate tune in, but won't actually help at all. And it goes all the way back to Jon Stewart's argument when he was on Crossfire and effectively destroyed the show. When he's talking to Bagala and Tucker Carlson about this is wrestling and it's terrible for democracy. And he's absolutely right. So watching this kind of, as the president has gotten angrier and angrier, and the accounts, both fake and real, that support him, especially when you've got the QAnon crowd, which is, I think, besides gullibility, the primary characteristic of that group of people is loneliness, feeling cut off and disenfranchised from society. A Trump, a Trump fan finding another Trump fan, there's a clamoring that seems to go with that. And, that's why they would show up maskless at giant outdoor gatherings. You don't do that unless you don't think you have other options. Everybody who's wearing a mask and going, you know what, I'm going to vote for him, but I'm staying home. That's not the crowd, that buys hook, line, and sinker the QAnon stories and all that kind of stuff. And so, insofar as this Tuesday, when Josh Hawley, the carpetbagger from Missouri, who has a $1.3 million house in Virginia, doesn't own a home in Missouri. His wife and he got added to his parents' deed on their house right before they sold the property, so they could buy him a house in Virginia. And he is registered to vote at his sister's house where he does not live, which the Republicans will certainly give as evidence of voter fraud, I guess. People are voting from out of state that don't deserve it, like Josh Hawley, right, who voted for himself, I have no doubt, in a district, in a state he doesn't live, for an office he shouldn't be allowed to hold because he doesn't live in the state. That crowd, there will be a wailing and gnashing of teeth, a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing this Tuesday, but they know it's a foregone conclusion, which is one of the reasons, by the way, why Josh Hawley is going through with it. If he actually thought, and this is true, if he actually thought it would do damage, that it would actually upset it would wreck the Electoral College and nullify the entire election, in which case Nancy Pelosi becomes president on the 20th. Just for the record, because, Trump still, even if you scrape away all those states, Trump is still behind in the Electoral College by 10 under Biden, right? And so he doesn't get to just stay president. That's not how it works. We get a new term, new president. You don't just get to, well, I was already in here. Dibs, finders keepers. And you can't, just because you could stay in the White House doesn't make you president. It's a residence. They can shut off all the buttons in there pretty easily. There's the Pentagon elevator needs a key, that gets into the tunnels, right? that key stops working on January 19th at midnight. My favorite story about how they handle Trump in some ways, if he refuses to leave or something, is that his staff, their passes no longer work. So he'd literally be alone in the White House with only his post-presidential Secret Service staff, whose only job would be to escort him off the premises. That level of, crazy flailing, the Ellen Woods of the world are, brandishing about those ideas. But Tuesday will be a lot of noise. Hawley knows it's a bunch of noise. And the reason he knows it's a bunch of noise is because he's intending on running for president, as being one of the young upstarts running for president next time, who wiggles his way into being vice president and then president for somebody who's already in the Pez dispenser on the Republican side to become the next president, whoever it ends up being. And him being the sort of true Trumper running sidecar to John Kasich, for example, is a ticket they think they could get behind. And Hawley's got his eyes on that. But if he actually wrecked the Electoral College and tried to genuinely flip it, and it actually did cause some damage and caused a constitutional crisis, if what he was doing actually worked, it would scuttle those chances. It won't do anything. It'll look like this is procedural. I just want to make sure people feel heard. That's what he's going to be saying. And that's what he has been saying. So on Tuesday, it will mean nothing. It'll be, and the 140 some odd members of Congress who are, objecting will have no meaning as well, because those states don't get to override the Electoral College of other states, especially when their states voted the other way. It just doesn't work that way. That's why we have a federal government. They don't get that say, nor should they, because bye-bye states' rights. In an alternative universe where Republicans believe what they say, that would, that's not a real thing.
Seriously, what if anything that they're pushing for has been possible this whole time?
Oh my God. If it had been possible during the Obama years, Wednesday's the 6th. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Milkman Norm. I keep forgetting today is the
second.
The second. Yeah, I keep thinking it's the 3rd. My bad. Over the course of this, it's a bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of ridiculousness. And they're taking advantage of the fact that it's a bunch of ridiculousness to use it. In Hawley's case, the ones in the House, the Louis Gohmerts of the world, they're true believers. They're locked in with this Ellen Wood insanity. But that's what's leading to death threats against Mike Pence and calls for him to face a firing squad by Ellen Wood and Sidney Powell's crowd, which is, at no point. Well, we have to take a break. We'll come back with some of this, but the president is now vacillating between pointing laser-focused ire on Mike Pence for somehow not doing something he was never going to do, and that no one should ever believe he would do, and all of America, because to hell with you guys if you didn't reelect me, because he knows he really lost, and so he's off the job right now. He's just, and what his only career currently is raising money for his post-presidency. That's what it is. Fleecing his own supporters. And I'm for it. We'll be back.
Joan Esposito, live,
There she is.
local, and progressive.
And lovely.
Live, local, and lovely.
Lovely. Isn't she local? So, yeah, the idea that Trump would invoke the Insurrection Act as part of, his plan is just loony and doesn't carry forward, because the DC Metro Police and the state police, for Virginia and stuff, handle all that area. And there's no indication that they couldn't handle. There's not an army forming against another army forming, and the Proud Boys aren't his army against another. There's nothing that makes it stand up in any look back at all legally. It's just come on. But, if that's what they got, that's what they got. If that's what he needs to yell at the, at the sky. So, but I will say this, if to all the trolls and Trumpsters and maggots in our, in the chat today, welcome. Glad to have you here, inflating our numbers as usual. I really appreciate it. And I don't know why you're here and not out fundraising for Trump's legal defense.
Back in 15.
Thank you. If anything, Trump has opened the talks to shorten the lame duck session. Yeah, ultimately he's just wasting his own time. That's the amazing part.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. So in the next hour, Frank Figliuzzi is going to be joining us to talk about his book, The FBI Way. I'm fascinated by it. Some of you may or may not know that my uncle is a retired FBI agent. And so I've got, family that's dealt with the sort of worst of the worst when it comes to criminals. These are not, traffic cops pulling people over. These are not, people dealing with, even street gangs. It's major, like, serial killers, escaped, pedophiles and rapists, on the run, those kind of fugitives. I've heard stories of that my entire life because of the tier level of human that they have to deal with. That, and you go look at the current FBI's 10 most wanted and understand the wake of death and destruction behind every single one of, those human beings. That just the vicious nature to get to that level, to get in the top 50, you have got to be so god-awful as a human being that in the top 10, and the fact that when the FBI comes for you, you effectively get white glove treatment because they got to make sure that you don't claim that they mistreated you so that they can get out of jail. This person is so important, you have to carry them to jail like a crystal vase. Because if they can find any way of not facing justice, they'll use it. And so it's a fascinating aspect of crime is that the higher levels you get to, the more options available to people that they will take advantage of. I mean, I don't know. Did you watch the Unabomber manhunt thing on I think it's on Netflix with
I didn't see that yet,
Paul
no.
Bettany? It's terrific. It's a great look at it. It's about the FBI agent primarily that, used linguistics in the behavioral science unit to figure out who it was and whether or not they should publish the manifesto, which was a big thing, and many of us who remember, the Timothy McVeigh period, letting their message get out gives more impetus for other people like them, especially those that don't ever expect to live, dead enders or ones who plan suicide by cop or those things, to get their message out. That, I mean, it becomes a delivery system. So, to do that is a huge decision. But ultimately, it led to Ted Kaczynski's sister-in-law recognizing his writing. And in that process, it's just extraordinary. So, like I said, I'm always impressed by and kind of excited by the process of that, because I grew, like I said, I grew up with it. My cousin, who's a U.S. Marshal, has one of the longest running. Thank you, Gracie. We had a new Patreon while we were talking. That's lovely. My cousin, who caught, I believe currently is the longest running fugitive catch so far in U.S. Marshal history. I think he's got the record right now. It's something like 24 years this guy was on the run, and they found him. Is on the case of another guy, and some people have talked about have known that I'm part of it. And by the way, and I'll ask Frank Figluzzi in the next hour what it's like to go through those periods where someone is out there, they are doing ill, and you're doing everything to bring them in, and they're doing everything they can to stay out. And in those moments, you have there's a myriad of choices in the circumstance of following leads and all those things that if this person slips by, it means death for someone. It means damage. It means danger for other human beings. And the amount of pressure on that is just extraordinary. There's a guy named Lester Eubanks that my cousin David is currently on the case of. He has the case is online. You can look it up, Lester Eubanks. If you know anything about him, please call the U.S. Marshals. But he sexually assaulted and murdered a 15-year-old girl. He's black. She was black. He assaulted her, shot her, and then came back a half hour later, and she was still alive.
Oh, I've heard of this one.
And he hit her in the head with a cement block to kill her. He bashed her head in to kill her. He went to jail. He got
just recently.
Yeah, he went to jail. He got the death penalty. The federal death penalty was the Ohio death penalty. He was in the Columbus area. Was overturned. He had his sentence commuted to life in prison. During that time, he was given extra privileges for being a model prisoner, where he was allowed to go Christmas shopping for 2 hours.
Yes.
Without anybody watching him. I like these days, it's unbelievable to even consider, but that was the case. And to no one's surprise, he took it on the heel and toe. He hoofed it, and he's been on the run. He's been on the run ever since.
We're all going to meet back here, right? We're all going to meet by the
right at 2 o'clock. Like it was a Boy Scout troop. Splitting up, and going shopping.
So if you're not at 1 potato, 2 potato, by the time we're getting ready to fill up the van,
you're in
we're
big trouble.
Have to call it in.
Right. So he's been gone. He's been on the run for 27 years, something like 28 years. And in my beliefs, and I've talked about this with my cousin, there is no way, considering what kind of human being this guy is and what he did, that he has not reoffended. That there are other crimes out there that are associated with this guy he can't not. Right. And at this point, what he's looking for the long haul if he gets caught and goes back. So there's no impetus to not to leave a witness behind or any of those kind of things. So it's a horrifying aspect of it that when you are tracking down people in that situation, the level of pressure on FBI agents, on U.S. Marshals, on police forces across the country when they're dealing with someone like that is, I don't think a lot of us process that kind of going to bed and getting up every morning with that on your mind every day, while you're eating breakfast, while you're talking to your children, while you watch them go off to school, knowing someone like that is out there, and a lot of someones like that are out there, and dealing with that part of it, and having to, in many ways, find your way back to center so you can function, so you can not only be a human and just not yell at your kids to stay away from every human being they could possibly run into because you're paranoid beyond measure because of what you've seen and experienced, but also to go out there, do your job, and help find that person so you can save lives, so you can stop those kind of things. And that kind of control over your own mental state is something I find enviable and worth, practicing on a lot of fronts so that you're the useful person in any circumstance, especially one of that seriousness, right? It's why I encourage everybody to get CPR training. So when that moment comes, you can trust yourself to be able to help. If it happens, and you're the only one there, you've got it. It's an amazing thing. We're going to talk to Frank Figluzzi right after the break about his new book, The FBI Way, and we'll see you right after this. we go. And now I get to try and let's see. Frank, are you in there? I think I hear you moving around. Do you have to turn your camera on? I have to see, how do I add?
Well, my camera should be on.
Okay.
I think it's on. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Yes, I can. Perfectly well. I want to see. Let's see. Grid view. Let's meet. Speaker view. There he is. Oh, yeah. Okay. So let's see. I just see your picture. I don't see your camera. I see that you are talking. So
I see him.
Oh, you see him?
He has 3 nice paintings behind him, kind of a seascape.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Well, then that's it'll be on my.
He has a slight concerned look on his face.
I'm concerned. I'm generally concerned when people say they can't see me.
We'll figure it out. I'll make sure it's in there, but let's see. We'll figure this part of it out on my end. But we're all good. At the very least, on the radio, we'll definitely be able to hear you. That's not a problem. The secondary part is very simple, and we will put both of these up there, and I will figure that out.
My Skype is on grid view, Hal, and I can see you too. I can see both of you.
Great. Mine's on grid view
as well. And when I switch it to speaker view, it just kind of bounces around between whoever's speaking.
Yes. All right, good.
Obviously.
Right, we'll figure this part of it out on my end.
Hey, Johnny, should I make a change on my end so that Hal can
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Are you on? No, I don't think so. Are you on grid view or any of that stuff?
I'm on grid view.
Yeah, cool. So I just see in speaker view, I only get the icon, which is a curious thing. Maybe it's because I started the meeting and I have to invite you in visually or something. I don't know. We'll figure that part of it out. Not an issue. The good thing is we can hear you and it's all good.
Awesome. I see that. Yeah. I see the very authentic, gritty, urban look behind you.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm sure reflects the reality of where you're seated right now.
Yeah, it's not a green screen covering shelves full of marble toys at all.
Right. No.
Yeah. But excellent. I mean, I could always throw up the 8-bit Christmas thing if you really want to have that forgot to take my tree out experience.
That's okay.
Yeah, thanks.
He's waving you off.
So I'll figure out how to make that happen. Let's see. Okay, let's do this.
So do you know Paul Holes?
Paul
what?
Who?
Paul Holes, the guy who helped capture the Golden State Killer.
I do not. No. Do you?
No, but I'm a fan.
We have a hold on. Maybe that's because I've got a chat open. No,
I was out. I was assigned to California for 3 years in my career. I was a supervisor in the San Francisco division. I had Northern California.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow!
You were in Cleveland though too for a while, were you not?
For 4 years, I was the head of the FBI in Northern Ohio. Yep.
Yeah. So my uncle's a lot older than you, but that's where he was.
Oh, no kidding.
So, yeah. So
was his last name also Sparks or what?
No?
Do you know?
No, it's my it's my mom's maiden name, but like he's kind of like these days he's sort of living off radar simply because of he's one of these nervous guys where like somebody's going to get out of jail and come to the door because a lot of the guys he put away went away for decades, but some of them get out.
They do indeed. And they hold grudges. Yep.
Yes, they do. And so he's a little, they have a well fortified basement with its own landline. I'm just saying.
I understand.
Yeah. So they're not quite preppers. We're coming back. Okay. So we'll start up on this, and I'm going to let's do this. Thank you, Maxwell. I'm going to bring this up as well, and. I can even bring up a graphic of the book. I got it on Apple Books, but I'll present the Amazon version if that helps. Whatever works, Frank.
Yeah, and I may have even sent you a standalone graphic as well, but thank you.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at HalSparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn, pus-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
I have to say I'm very excited to have our guest on today, Frank Figliuzzi. Many of you fans of the show will know Frank from being on MSNBC and talking about all things FBI and the law and order world as it's become a hashtag over the last couple of years, especially. Frank, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad we could do this, and I'm kind of regretting that we haven't met before this, but here we are.
Yeah, indeed. And not, it's not surprising. I create my own kind of liberal talk hovel over here where I can kind of say my piece and not get anyone else in trouble. It's a matter of allowing the networks to have a standard they can live up to, and I don't have to mess it up. I will say this. So the book is Inside the Bureau's Code of Excellence, the FBI Way. And on the cover, Frank, and for those of you that don't know, Frank is a former FBI assistant director. On the front of it, it says the sort of base code of the FBI: fidelity, bravery, integrity. And over the years, I'm sure you've dealt with, and we can kind of deal with the elephant in the room, is the idea that the FBI in decades, in previous decades, may not have lived up to that standard. And as many of us have areas and decades of our lives where we may have fallen short of our best behavior, there was times, in the 50s, especially in the 60s, where we hear about the FBI being sort of weaponized against counterculture and the like. But in the process, the FBI over time has become, a mainstay in the zeitgeist of America as far as what true kind of genuine law and order, equality of justice means. And then to watch it over the last couple of years, was that the impetus for writing this book as both a reminder and an instruction book in some ways?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack in that question, and I love it because there's nuances in there. But here's the bottom line on why I wrote the book. The FBI performs at an exceptionally high level of excellence the vast majority of the time, especially when the stakes are at the highest. You've been talking in the last hour about life and death, right? When it matters the most, the FBI does get it right. And so I spent 25 years inside that organization, not only observing that level of excellence, but absorbing it and even leading it in senior positions. And so my message in the book is you don't have to spend 25 years inside the FBI to glean some of the tips and code to live by that gets to that level of excellence in your life. So, I've distilled it down to what I call the 7 C's, or the FBI way, which is the title of the book. And I'm kind of sharing that with everybody because it's my download after 25 years. Now, what prompted me to do something like this after I had said to people repeatedly, I'm not the guy who writes the book. I'm not doing it. Well, there'd be no surprise as to why. I watched the institution that I loved and was a part of for 25 years be bashed by the highest levels of our government and be the victim of accusations that aren't true. So I dedicated the book to the men and women, the rank and file of the FBI who come to work every single day simply trying to get it right for us.
Right. So, Frank, the 7 C's that you mentioned, and what kind of makes it in many ways like a business leadership book or for lack of a better phrase, a self-help book, but like a personal best kind of a book, are code, conservancy, clarity, consequences, compassion, credibility, and consistency. Now, credibility, consistency, compassion, consequences, and clarity, I think a lot of people grasp the meaning of those right away. But code and conservancy are the ones that stood out to me that might need a little more explanation in terms of how establishing you know what an organization's code might be, like the FBI, they have a standard that you walk into, but developing your own code, you know, what can that look like? And the conservancy part in terms of, you know, your definition and how it would apply to your personal life in that. I'm curious about both those things. And then I absolutely have to pick your brain about the FBI as well.
Oh yeah, let's do it. But first, let's talk about the first 2 chapters in the book, and I deliberately put them first because everything else flows from that if you're trying to get it right, trying to achieve the highest level of excellence. So look, everything flows from your core values, whether you're leading a Little League team or a classroom or a community or a corporation or even a country, very, very relevant right now with what we're going through. You better have identified what matters most to that entity. And many people go through life, many companies go through existence with never truly being able to articulate to their people, this is what matters most. And I think on a national level, we're seeing that the lack of a preserved code, the lack of an ability to see threats to that code have pretty much got us to where we are and where we're probably going to be on January 6th, which is that we seem to have lost the ability of preserving the truth and what matters. So then if you've got your core values, you can then articulate your code of conduct, which is these 2 or 3 things matter so much to me or my organization that I'm going to fight like hell if there's a threat to them. Then we move to the second C of conservancy, which is what? So conservancy is simply a group collective effort to preserve and maintain something bigger than yourself, right? And the FBI does this every single day, internally with its own code of conduct and externally preserving the values of the nation. It's a team sport. And so many people go through a corporate life, for example, thinking, the preservation of ethics and integrity in my organization, that's somebody else. I think that's HR, or I think that's legal down the hallway, right? Or we have an audit staff that does that. And what I'm saying in the book is that's not the FBI way. The FBI way is no. Every single one of us is a conservator of our values and the nation's values.
Yeah. And I think that like kind of handing it off, and that's interesting because there actually, even within the FBI, there is an organization within that deals with exactly what you're talking about. That is the guardrails, the hard guardrails by which you do not go past, and that would be OPR, the Office of Professional Responsibility, where you also worked in the FBI, correct?
Yeah, I had the privilege of trying to help get it right in terms of leading a unit in the OPR, which is the equivalent of a police department's internal affairs. But I specifically had to decide discipline. And if you can imagine some of the finest human beings in the world, right? FBI employees all have top secret clearances. They all go through extensive backgrounds every 5 years. They're subject to random urinalysis and polygraph exams. And it's the cream of the crop. Imagine being in charge of a unit that has to decide what to do with some of these folks when they're accused and proven to have engaged in serious misconduct. I did that. Some of it was agonizing, but I like to think that for a period in my career, I was a keeper of the code.
Yes. To use, I think some fiction that's in the zeitgeist, there was that line, I believe, in Jack Reacher where in his job in the military, a cop asks him, what did you do in the military? He goes, same thing as you did, with one exception. Every suspect was a trained killer. And the idea that you have to go after someone who's, who understands all the techniques of, an FBI agent who may be involved in untoward activities makes it even harder. And how it might reflect on the FBI, the messaging going forward. If you catch someone within, it's actually a sign that you're doing things right. But if word gets out that someone's been caught doing something, it makes it look bad. It's a very interesting line that you guys have to deal with every time, right?
And this is part of what prompted the book, right? Because we're living through a time where I'm not so sure when an FBI agent knocks on a citizen's door, flashes those credentials, and says, I need your help. whether it's a kidnapping or a terrorist threat, if that citizen blinks for a second and goes, I don't know about this organization.
Yeah.
I've heard they're part of a deep state. I've heard they tried to get at the president. That hurts the mission and hurts our security nationwide. Right. So that's the book. Here's the inside story. Here's how you can get this right. And I have to tell you, for several paragraphs in the book, I talk very candidly about those senior executives who unfortunately contributed to the public perception of the Bureau as politicized or not getting it right.
Right. So my question, and by the way, there was a Republican congressperson, I believe it was, who said, I don't know why any Republican would talk to the FBI ever again, recently. That, it's not like this simply, was a random Trump tweet that just made a mess or one particular incident. This is the attempt to create, anyways, a kind of stiff arm to one of the most hallowed law enforcement agencies in the country, and one that's valuable for human safety within the country. Because a good portion of what the FBI does, what would you say the lion's share of the FBI's work is, as far as volume of types of cases, as far as kidnappings, homicides, possible bombings, those kind of things, like we saw in Nashville, where the FBI, obviously came in right away, with partnering with ATF-E. What would you say is because I don't know that the public's perception of what the volume of what the FBI does is, these days especially, it seems all political. It seems like we have so many crooks in our government that it might take up a lion's share of their time, when it actually, I don't think, does.
This is a great question, because you're right. What do they say? What screams loudest gets the most attention, or something. So
right. Yeah, squeaky wheel gets the grease, or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What we're seeing on TV every day is, the Bureau's doing this about this politician, or the Russia hoax, as Trump calls it. When the reality is, and I think a lot of Americans go, hey, that's really far removed from me. I've got a community I live in. I got kids to raise. So here's the bottom line. If you were to look at the numbers on caseload within the FBI, you wouldn't be seeing this, Russian counterintelligence is the bulk of the caseload. Absolutely not. It's the stuff that affects you, me, our neighbors, and our kids, which is violent crime, number one. And in violent crime, let's put in gangs, organized crime, major league drug distribution, and then white-collar crime and corruption. Those are the numbers of cases, and that's what impacts your life. I was the head of the FBI for the Cleveland division. We took down a corrupt structure in the Cuyahoga County government, including the county commissioner himself, about 70 building inspectors and assorted government officials, that made life miserable for anybody trying to do business in Cuyahoga County. And that literally changed the form of government in the county, so that you could do business uninterrupted. You didn't have to pay a bribe to open a restaurant, etc. And that's what changes lives. We also dismantled gangs and had mothers in neighborhoods writing to us saying, thank you, my kid can play on the playground without me being afraid of a stray bullet. That's the kind of impact that the FBI has every day.
Right. Now, Frank, I know I only talked you into one segment. We have to take a break. Can you stick with me through the break? Because I just have a couple more questions to ask you on sort of your personal experience on, working in the FBI. And one of the stories you tell about in the very beginning of the book about the strength test that kind of relates to other aspects of people's lives. Is that a possibility? You got that moment for me? That's great. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll be back with more with Frank Figluzzi. His new book, The FBI Way. We're going to take a quick break. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, MegaWorldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. 773-763-9278 is our number. We're obviously not taking calls till after the next segment because I got to keep Frank. We'll be back right after this. Thank you, Suze. Okay, let's see. Might be. Yeah. So, Frank, I guess you can still hear me, so we should be good. It'll be about a minute and a half or so for the break. It's a short one.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. Jump back to here real quick. Try to do this. Cool. There you go, Johnny. See you. Yep. Still, I don't know. That might be on my end in setting up the meeting in the primary way of how I did it. This is our first time doing this, so it's not surprising that there'd be a mild kerfuffle, but all's well.
All right.
Yeah, but so far terrific, and yeah, my uncle did a lot of he did a lot of time in the listening van. I'll just put it that way.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and so that was a big portion of what he did, both technically and in his work and stuff, and it was just hours and hours, and it was it was obviously the reason why my cousin decided to go into Ellie and became a marshal. And
because a lot more daily action in the marshals.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, definitely going through a lot of doors. He's
coming back in 15 seconds.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. And Frank, do you read your own audiobook?
Are you the voice? And you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Thanks, Tom. Welcome back to the show. I'm Hal Sparks. Our guest, of course, is Frank Figliuzzi, who has his new book, The FBI Way. Frank, like a lot of my listeners, especially, are going to know you from being on MSNBC and having to talk about, obviously, the quagmire caused by Comey coming out, and then arguably, right before the 2016 election, and then arguably Trump trying to recreate that exact moment using, foreign intelligence services to try to benefit him in a way to throw something in front of the public to try and make them think the same awful things they brought to think about Hillary Clinton, to think about Joe Biden right before the election. This was a strategy, the weaponization of this. And to the FBI's credit, it did not work. It didn't happen again. And that's a good sign. I think that's a sign of progress. Your feelings on that as we led up into the election this year, because knowing about the Comey announcement about the Hillary Clinton email server thing definitely having an impact, and then the attempts to get that done. I'm just curious your own thoughts about or trepidation about that, or if you had any leading in, or if you felt like it was solved before then.
Well, look, one of the most disturbing things about the last 4 years for me has been the politicizing and the weaponization of the intelligence community. These are men and women, career professionals who come in simply seeking the truth every single day, trying to protect the country. And so two things happened virtually simultaneously. Comey, I believe, had an error in judgment. Now, it's easy for me to sit back as a Monday morning quarterback and say that, but he handed Trump an excuse to bash the Bureau, and the Bureau isn't going to live that down for years. He basically, that big day when he had the flags draped behind him and announced no reasonable prosecutor would ever prosecute Hillary Clinton, he forgot that he was the FBI director and not the attorney general. The FBI doesn't make prosecutive decisions. So that opened a can of worms that sadly has led to Trump doing what he's been doing.
Right.
But on the same hand, in a far graver sense, the president has been twisting, ignoring, perverting intelligence, not even reading his daily intelligence brief. And our nation is all the more vulnerable and threatened because of that president.
Right. And I have to be honest. I'm one of these folks in my sort of watching daily of the presidency, as I've had to do both professionally and comedically, is that I'm for him not knowing any more than he absolutely has to, and I don't believe that any of his input would actually better the country in a lot of these situations. He's not going to be the guy in the room who comes up with the great idea after a presidential briefing and goes, how about this as a strategic thing? I don't believe that's ever going to happen out of his mouth for a second. So him not following his briefing, as I treat with very little seriousness unless it slows down the actions of other people, which is the primary thing, because as you follow the chain of command, and the FBI, I think, is aware of this, is that you've got to wait for, clearance from superiors and the like. And you absolutely should in an organization that actually has foundational principles and all these things. And it does bring it back to this idea of having a code. And I think the most inspiring thing about the book for me, as I've just, like I said, just started picking it up. It comes out, I believe, on the 12th. People can get it. You can pre-order it now on Amazon and on, I got it on Apple Books, was the idea of having a code for yourself. What would my code look like? What would my, 5 principles that I see every day? If there was a version of, fidelity, integrity, compassion, whatever those would be for me, having those up there, it has started that ball rolling in my head. That's what this book is, sort of brought up for me. And is that part of your goal for it on a personal level, that people personally create their own kind of code of ethics if they don't already have one?
Yeah, so here's the deal. This book can be so many things at so many levels to so many different people. So if you're the CEO of a corporation and you're struggling with how to get employees all rowing in the same direction in terms of values-based performance, that's this book. If you're on a personal level saying, you know what, I've never actually walked through a mental exercise of what matters most to me in my life and what I'm going to fight like hell for to maintain and preserve in my family or my homeowners association or whatever it is that gets you going every single day and what you stand for. It's time to do that. And the book does that without preaching, because in the book, I talk about my own struggles in my career, my own screw ups where I got it wrong. But my point is, and also, by the way, I'm careful to say the FBI is not a perfect organization. In fact, I say in the chapter on credibility is not about being perfect. It's about being transparent and passionate about getting it right. So yes, this book will have people thinking both personally and professionally about what matters most to them and to the nation. And we've been going through that right now as a nation for the past 4 years.
Yeah, because when leadership cedes, the moral and ethical ground to the vapors, it often falls upon the members of an organization or the individuals or the citizenry themselves to really reflect in a way that they may not have done before because they took it for granted that the structures exist. Okay, what do I really stand for? Are all the people who say they stand for the flag and patriotism actually, do they actually believe in what the flag stands for and patriotism, or are those just words to them? And if they're just words to them, can they be just words to me if I'm maintaining an ethical standard, where I'm trying to be better than that? So we only got a couple of minutes left before this other break, Frank, and I want to encourage people to check out the book, The FBI Way. Frank Figliuzzi's book comes out in just a little over a week on Amazon and Apple. I bought it on the Apple bookstore, as I often do. I do exercises, Frank, mentally when I'm dealing with either Trump or somebody else, where I'm like, okay, what are they going to do or say next in this play? What does this really game out to look like? What are the options I may be faced with? So on an FBI level, do you ever find yourself doing intellectual exercises where you have to go, okay, I'm dealing with awful people. What kind of awful thoughts are they having? We know that the BAU and other groups have to go through this, but do you ever find yourself ruminating on, okay, these are the 3 bad things they could really do, whether they're aware of it or not? How do we, tourniquet those things before they happen, or those kind of things? I'm curious about your own experience in that regard.
Yeah, look, this is what American taxpayers pay FBI personnel to do. and what I did for 25 years, which is we never got paid to hope for the best. We got paid to do some predictive analysis and prepare for the worst while working for the best possible outcome. So on TV, in the past 3 years that I've been doing TV and almost 1,000 hits on live television, that's exactly my role, which is to game this out. And I have to tell you, as we game this out to worst possible or most likely scenarios, the next step on our calendar, as you know, is January 6th, when what's supposed to be a pro forma ratification of the Electoral College apparently is not going to happen that way. It's going to be a goddarn circus. And we've had a U.S. Congressman, Louis Gohmert, in the last 24 hours call for violence in the streets during a Newsmax interview. I just tweeted that on my Twitter account. When you have U.S. Congressmen calling for violence in the streets because they want to overturn a legal valid election, we've got a problem. And so I see violence in the future. I see people not being conservators, but rather allowing people to hand them their values. And that's what's happening. I'm going to get handed a fiction because I'm just blindly going to accept it instead of examining it themselves. Thankfully, we had, 80 million people show up as conservatives and do the right thing voting. But we've got over 70 million people who are being handed their truth by someone else.
That's right. And again, I'm not one of these people who's all in that all 72 million of those people believes what Trump is selling them. I think a lot of them are Republicans with an R on their jersey that vote that way every time, or that vote straight ticket, or have been sold a bill of goods about Democrats that is untrue and that made them scared to vote one direction or the other, but doesn't necessarily reflect their internal bigotry or ethical problems one-to-one. The kind of people who would vote for Trump but would also run towards a burning car to help somebody out of it. There's a lot of that in the country that gives me hope. Frank, I want to appreciate you being on with us at the beginning of the year. It's great to finally get to talk to you as well. I'd love to have you back at some point, and I look forward to finishing the book and kind of crafting that idea of having your own kind of personal code, just up on the wall, remind you every day, not a successory that somebody else wrote, but your own version of those things that you don't step outside of. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the book, and I thank you for being on with us today and the work that you've done, and I appreciate your service. So thanks a lot.
Al, I'm grateful for the opportunity. Here's to a better and brighter new year ahead.
Oh, it kind of can't not, but yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed and keep working. But appreciate it. Thanks so much. That was Frank Figliuzzi. His book, The FBI Way, comes out in about a week and a couple of days. Check it out on Amazon. Or on Apple, or wherever you get your reading materials, digitally or physically. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. 773-763-9278 is our number. We'll see you after the break. Thank you so much, Frank.
My pleasure, Hal. That was a great discussion. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah, my pleasure. We'll talk. Yeah, be well. Have a good luck with the book.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Bye.
Yeah. Cool. And then I think there you go, John.
Up.
You did? You're like, oh, bye. Yeah. Oh, shit.
I was like,
show.
I had my mouse over the little hang up button. Like, here we go. See you guys.
And oh no, right? Yeah. This is This is, let's see. Don't challenge, or it's always, yeah, Frank Figliuzzi, and I'll show you the book. I think I have where is it? There we go. The book, and let's see if I can bring the title up in a way that shows this image. There we go. It doesn't want to. There we go. There's the book, and I don't know why it doesn't want to scroll up this way on the thing, but it's there we go. There's his name a little clearer, Frank Figliuzzi. And by the way, on MSNBC you always see like the like Frank Fagluzzi, you know, and they kind of breeze through his name. And it's a little more Italian in its reading than I always hear it as Fagluzzi, and it's not.
It's just Fagluzzi.
It's Figliuzzi, yeah.
Coming back in
kind
15,
of matters.
and we've got Ike waiting on hold.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
I'm Dick Kay from Back on the Beat, and here is the Mega Worldwide radio program with Hal Sparks.
Welcome back. That was officially our first guest of 2021, but also our first kind of like self-booked guest thing ever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My good buddy Chris Sampson, who's in Intel, and he and Malcolm Nance are really good friends, and Chris is I'm his learning Chinese crutch. He's been trying to learn Chinese, and so I kind of help him test it out every so often. Stuff. He's good, really great guy. Was really cool meeting him. I met him and Malcolm at Politicon. It was the only good thing that came from hanging out at Politicon. You know, besides, I suppose, that was officially the first time Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks started hating me. And watching her and Cenk and Van Jones and Ann Coulter all laugh it up backstage, like buddy. It was weird, so weird. What a weird thing. Now I understand getting along with people, and I can be charming and jovial with any person, but I also don't make my living creating those enemy lines. You know what I mean? I certainly have my distinct humans that I don't like, but that doesn't automatically cover a blanket of humans. I'm just that way. That's part of my code, if you would, in that regard. But listening to people like Ike, for example, is also part of my code. Ike is on the line waiting for us. We have callers occasionally, and he's one of the greats. Ike, are you with us? Is he there?
Oh, you're too kind, too kind. Hey,
true, sir. Yes, Happy New Year.
Yeah. I'll believe it when I see it.
Right. It's still got the reminiscent layover from 20. I mean, we are still in a pandemic. There's still a lot of reality to go around. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Georgia, baby. That's the next shoe to drop.
Right.
But yeah, generally, a lot of times I'll miss your show because you're right in my damn nap time, and I just happened to wake up, and I really did think it was Monday,
Yeah.
Somebody told me.
Doesn't it always feel like that these days?
That's how scrambled my world is at the moment.
Sure.
But listen, since you're from Kentucky,
mm-hmm.
Here's my idea, and it's what I put out on my tweet. When I put out a couple of tweets today,
mm-hmm.
and I'm putting it on my Facebook. And basically, I hope it goes everywhere. And here you go, chat room. Hey, how you guys doing? Happy New Year! I got
right. They're all saying hi.
Let's start a hashtag. You ready?
Okay.
I'm sorry there, guy, but boycott anything and everything from Kentucky. Boycott Kentucky. Don't buy Jack Daniels. Don't buy the whiskey. Don't buy anything that comes from there. Any company that's headquartered there. It's time for us to start like an apartheid movement against the state of Kentucky until those voters get rid of that abhorrent piece of garbage that they saddled us with for the last 12 years.
Rand Paul? You mean Mitch McConnell? You mean both of them? How about both of them? I would argue you've got, and Kentucky ends up with a Democratic governor, right? But all of a sudden during this election, when if you want to talk about curious voter circumstances, it seems like all the 5 swing state noise that they're making is really just a smokescreen to cover for the fact that less than half of registered Democrats in Kentucky voted this cycle, when turnout everywhere else was enormous. comparatively. And
are they smoking their own crop or something that they're growing there?
No, it's not legal there. Right.
Can't get out to go to work.
Right. The big green donuts from the air.
That's your number one cash crop in Kentucky. Yep.
That's right.
Texas blue weed you guys are growing in the mountains up there. I know what y'all are doing. Not only that, you still got your stills running. But who are the companies in Kentucky that we can aim at here and put the pressure on, and convince them? And also another thing, how can we start recalls? Can we put a recall up against them and get a petition going? What do we got to do to get rid of some of these clouds?
Well, as far as Kentucky, being entrenched, what really needs to happen is the election security bill that Mitch has hit down a couple of times needs to be, each piece of it needs to be entered into must-pass legislation through the amendment process in the committees in the House and stuck there. And once that happens, after you get three elements of that, it makes it much harder for the kind of stuff that they pull, as far as just denying people machines and messing around with them. That's a big part of Kentucky. That would absolutely shift things over. When there's more attention on the races, that it's always helpful. But Mitch is if Mitch finishes the next 6 years, I'll be amazed. He's not in particularly great health, and the people in line behind him are not necessarily the true believers that they have. The problem is any state that size that gets the control of the Senate, that gets that seat, is going to hold on to it like the world's biggest tick for as long as they can, because they have no other meaning. While you're trying to boycott Kentucky, there's not a lot coming out of there anymore. That's the sad part. That's the hard part for Kentuckians. Coal's dried up. The liquor industry is bottled elsewhere. Distilleries are a big part of it. Tobacco's still an industry, but most of it's transitioned over into chattel crops and the like. Kentucky has a real problem, and the legalization of hemp and weed will turn it around, and that won't happen until Mitch is gone.
Have y'all got a paper trail, number one? And number two, yeah, I agree with you. I want Rand Paul's hairpiece so I can use it as one of those fuzzy tops for my toilet.
Well, the squirrel will be, somebody's going to get that scalp eventually, trophy-wise, when he loses. But again, he's running on. He's a carpetbagger too. He's not from Kentucky. He ran there because Mitch could run cover for him, and they could guarantee another Republican seat in the Senate. And there are fewer people in Kentucky than there are in Los Angeles County, and they have two senators, and both of those senators stand at either side of the legislative process, and basically hold a pincer move. For those of you who just watched Tenet, you'll know what I'm talking about. Where Mitch McConnell does the overt and Rand Paul does the covert. He does the behind-the-scenes anonymous holds, or holds it for some sort of libertarian reason, when in reality they both agree on why they want to scuttle the bill, and it's simply to make sure that the Democrats don't have a win, and the bills themselves will pass if they come up for a vote.
Right, and listen now, I'm going to cut you some slack, okay, just a little bit.
Because I moved out? Because I left? I have to take my beating because I'm in South Carolina and we stuck you guys with Lizzie Graham again. Yep. So I don't have a whole hell of a lot. But we do have a little better thing going, because if it wasn't for us, Biden wouldn't be president. So, It's a 50-50 deal over here. But I hate to say it, but I think your state is just flat out rotten to the core. You need to get home and fix them people. Or do I have to run for office in Kentucky? Is that what you're saying? Like when all COVID's over, I have to go I can do like Josh Hawley. I'll just make my sister's house my voting address, and then I'll run for Senate in Kentucky. I mean, that's all you have to do in Missouri. Why not? Right?
There you go. Well, I was thinking maybe, bring some more of that liberal attitude in there, and maybe, bring the good stuff from the West Coast and start packing their bongs with that, and get them off their ass, get them to do something, man. It's ridiculous. You got to do something.
I don't know. I think there's a certain level of inbreeding makes you more apt to have the gene that makes you paranoid from smoking pot as opposed to relaxed. and so it drives them. We drives them closer to QAnon than farther away.
Dang.
I'm blaming you. It's all you.
Well, all right. I'll take that responsibility, Ike. I'll do it. You watch. My grandfather ran for Senate in Kentucky a long time ago and missed by just a little bit. And so I've still got some of the bumper stickers. I mean, I could basically just reprint them. So, and I am a colonel, so I could maybe I'll take a note out of Louis Gohmert's book and just stage a military coup of Kentucky as a rogue militia colonel. Why not? I mean, since the Constitution's just toilet paper to them, why not? I'm of course being ridiculous.
That's the way I look at you, man. You're my little kernel of truth in my bowl of corn and beans that I'm eating for dinner.
Well,
buddy.
thank you. I thought you were going to say a kernel of truth and a pile of dog mess, but I appreciate at the very least being reaching the table. And honestly, I adore you. Happy New Year. We got to take a break. It's always good to talk to you, my friend. And thank you for the 50-50 year of Biden and Lindsey Graham. You flipped that coin and it landed right on its side and it's just holding there like something in Inception. We'll be back right after this. Cheers.
Good old Ike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a colonel, like Sanders. That's true.
I'll be right back again.
I am indeed. All right, you got to put it in the dryer. Is that another euphemism? Is your cat at least on the chair? No, I don't see it. Yes, is that it? I can't. His cat's so dark, and I don't understand. Like I can't. He's like, see my kitty. I'm like, I can't. Indeed, Peggy, he is. How many times I have to knock off work to dig your show? But what? Thank you. Should be in some office of our government. Well, eventually, Allison. It's what I've always said my 60s will be for, when I'm in my 60s. And I'm pretty much decided that I'm just going to, like, when I'm 60 and my hair's long, and I'll keep my hair long, let it go gray, and grow a big mustache and be like the Sam Elliott of Congress. Yeah. What does it take to be bekerneled? The governor has to do it. See a video of Don Jr., Kim Lee G, and Rudy whooping it up at Mar-a-Lago? Yes, I did. We saw that. You know what I mean? Just like keep your hair long and yeah, I have a slightly wet face. You can make the cat. I see. Thanks, Amy. I think so too. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like be Sam Elliott, or get a big long flowing beard. Yeah, the Ice-T was featured. Yes, so we saw that. Ice-T was the featured act at Mar-a-Lago. As you do. Yeah, be a Gandalf the Grey kind of thing. I hail from California, however you like being from Kentucky. I'm sorry, that's all I got. Well, I mean, California is my home, technically. I'm in Nevada right now because of lockdown, largely, so that my girl and I can be together all the time while we're not doing much. And California's lockdown is such that coming and going is out of the question. So
Coming back in 5 seconds.
Excellent, thank you.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program,
Vanilla Ice.
MegaWorldwide. It's now time for the happy ending. Yay!
If there is one. Johnny Million's still doing his... There he is. He's back. Johnny, that's the happy ending, is Johnny Million's back with us. And he had a snack, too, during the break.
Yep.
The nerve. I swear.
I condone snacking during breaks.
This Wednesday, the big wailing and gnashing of teeth, I'm sure, will be carried live by everyone, which is part of why it's being done in the first place. And for me, watching it go down, just like the NDAA. This is, honest to God, what you're going to see Wednesday, and I'm calling it right now, is exactly like what we've seen with the National Defense Authorization Act. Trump vetoed it. There was an, oh my God, it's must pass. Will they do it? Is it possible? How do you know, and then the veto got overridden very easily. It took a little bit of time. It was a procedural act, and it was done. And for all the wailing and gnashing of teeth for, a week and a half, how is he going to hang on to it? Will they sign it before the end of the legislative session? Once the new legislative session starts on Sunday, they have to draft a whole bill from scratch. All that stuff. Remember, like every news cycle you've heard where everybody's just wrenching their garments and running around the yard, all boiled down to, no, actually, normal life carries on. And in a lot of ways, like we're talking about with Frank Figluzzi about his book and about the FBI, is that with all this stuff about Comey and will the FBI ever be trusted and will they hesitate when the FBI comes to the door? I got news for you. 2 people might, but everybody else is going to go, oh, FBI, how can I help? Clearly, are you trying to get the serial killer that I'm not aware of that's on my block off my block? How can I be of service? That's most of the people. And I have, I'm telling you that this flailing about is about 2024 and a lot of people in the Republican Party positioning themselves to run for office next time as the people who inherit the Trumpster gang. Because Trump isn't going to run. There's going to be noise about it. He'll talk about it. It's not going to happen. He's not going to run. He'll make it'll maybe a year and a half of him showing up and calling into shows and being a frequent guest on OAN or something, in his bathrobe with a picture of him up from, that they took in 2003. But I'm here to tell you, yes, I do, Rupali. At no point is after January 20th is Donald John Trump ever going to be president again. He is not president after that day, and he will not be president again in his lifetime. It's not going to happen. For whatever sharpened tool he had that surprised everybody, his flanking maneuver of calling everybody names and all that nonsense that he basically wants to say he invented because he did the equivalent of an episode of Punk'd, where he just pranked the entire Republican Party by going, which was expecting a civil discourse, and all of a sudden they were like, oh my gosh, someone's calling me names, oh Lord. With this, the pearl clutching that went on in the 2015 cycle isn't going to happen again. People are already strategizing on the Republican side how, with the help of the Lincoln Project or other groups or their own version of that they'll mount a defense against Trump's tweets and nonsense if indeed his personal account will get suspended, more than likely by the end of the week after he's no longer president. Count on it, because he'll clamor that the election was fake and he'll call for something violent, forgetting he's no longer president, and then, insist on people show up with long guns someplace, and Twitter will shut his account down. Because he's just a person. He's at that point, he's no longer the president, and he doesn't have this soft right to a second account. It's and he'll end up yelling on Parler for a couple of months, and then get mad that it doesn't exist. He'll call into Fox with as long as his people promise that he won't act up. What were you going to say, Jenny?
What's worse than Parler? I can't imagine.
I know. Oh God, just such a sad gathering. But I'm telling you. Life goes on. There's a reality beyond the news cycle, and there's a reality beyond, the way the best example I can give is, you remember the OJ slow speed chase, right?
Of course.
You remember that whole thing? Remember his Bronco and them trailing it with a helicopter? Well, do you have any idea how many other traffic accidents and regular traffic incidents and normal flow of traffic periods there were during that? All of them. That during the white Bronco driving down the freeway, every other freeway in the country was just doing normal freeway stuff. And every other road around it was diverted for a couple of seconds while a car went by, just like any other car speed, like high speed or low speed chase that happens. And then it's over because life goes on. We all have better things to do. And the Trump presidency will be a blight on our public record. It will be an embarrassment of our country, but it will be right up there with every other embarrassment that every other country's had. He was shy of Hitler's damage and Mussolini's damage, and he managed to only, kill his own citizens at a clip that get anywhere near those kind of numbers. He was no Stalin. He was no King George. There was no point, or King Henry for that matter. He was not, Louis the 9th through 14th. There was... Every country has this period it goes through. We're a young country. It's surprising it took us as long as it did. We thought it was Nixon. It wasn't. It was Trump. And now we as the public get to recognize that all during this, the function of life and just having a country, having a society that functions and tries to serve its citizens the best is bigger than the fringe arguments between the two most outside guardrails of political discourse, the over the cliffs of political discourse. And I gotta say, in the world of political leaders, in 25, 30 years, Trump is another Hoover. He's a blip, and that will be the hardest thing for a lot of these people to deal with. And what Trump's having a hard time recognizing is that the other members of the Republican Party, the Josh Hawleys, the Ted Cruzes of the world, who've been lying in wait, going, I'll pretend to like him while he's here because I have no other choice. But he did say those awful things about my wife, and I'll get my spine back any day now. That a bunch of those folks are gaming for 2024 or 2028 and want his audience, who will be, to borrow a phrase from Kirk Cameron, left behind when Trump no longer serves their interests, when he's just a boring old codger screaming at the sky, at the sun to get off his lawn because it's burning his crabgrass. There's this, they're all waiting for this moment, and they're trying to find a way that they can steal his crowd. They can be the bag of sand to his golden idol in Raiders without setting off the darts. And that's all this is about. That's it. None of them like him, care about him, believe he's a conservative, actually think he's a Christian. No one in the Republican Party, even Lindsey Graham, believes this stuff about Trump. They are opportunistically covering their own butts during a downturn in their own party where it just went to hell. And they're trying to salvage whatever remnants it has because they can't build a fresh audience from scratch. It is, yes, Chris and Amy in our chat says it's about getting his audience. That's exactly what this is. It is posturing to get his audience. And America and democracy and the Constitution be damned, because it's about being a ruling party. It's about being rulers, when, all the time, and this is, in the last couple of minutes of our first show of 2021, the idea that we should, one day we'll all look back and laugh. I think we should start now, because it's ridiculous. We're in a ridiculous phase, and part of it will do you some good to remember that these are a bunch of in-serious flim-flam artists trying to con a group of easily conned people into the next con. That's it. And they are looking at the money that those folks are pouring into Donald Trump's pockets and going, hey, if I had a percentage of that, it sure would make my next senatorial run easy. And since Trump's not going to be around, where are they going to spend it? So that is, as we watch this week play out, and I look forward to next Saturday telling you I told you so. This will be a lot of much ado about nothing. But it's up to us, though, to remember that there is an election going on in Georgia this week. Do whatever you can to support that, and to point the ray of sunshine as best we can, put the spotlight on the shenanigans of the Republican Party going forward so that they just can't pretend and operate in the shadows so that this kind of thing builds up again. Because that's what happened. As people played footsie with it being normal when it absolutely is not, and not making that distinguishment between normal Republican and this, it overlapped and became the whole thing. And then it was easy for Trump to just take it and run with it like capture the flag. It was a simple process. And so we got to see what part we play in it and how to avoid it. Thank you guys so much. Thanks to everybody there. Thanks, Paul Devin. Everybody, thanks to Frank Fagluzzi for being our guest on the show. It was very exciting, Johnny Million. Follow at Johnny Million 1, the number 1 at the end of it, because he's got a new account because he was a naughty boy. And I'm at Hal Sparks on Twitter. We'll see you later on today as I stream again live at twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. Have fun. See you soon. There we go.
Create some sub Johnny, I'll see you guys next week. Great show.
Thank you. Stubble Boy, I will do precisely that. We have created some. I just have to upload them because I'm new to that part of it on Twitch. So, but we will get to that. That's part of my whole like New Year's plan. Once we cleared the 500 mark on patrons, it was amazing. That was it was maddening and beautiful and crazy, and I can't believe it, and I'm still excited, and we got tons, and the viewership is growing, and it's a really nice thing to see. It's very heartening,
Yeah.
And I look forward to the day when we have to transition to just talking about random pulp, because we don't have these kind of problems. You know what I mean? That would be the good thing. I will, by the way,
I want to talk about shark attacks, like
totally, and true crime stories, and and bingeable shows. Still streaming in 720. Oh, that's not my fault. And by the way, that's a YouTube factor, I think, not me. I'm by God, I'm at 1080.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I am. And unless there's an issue with Restream that I'm not aware of, which happens sometimes as well. So, but anyway, so Johnny Million, I adore you.
I love you, Hal.
And we need to. We'll do midweek. Let's celebrate after the Electoral College certification, and and they flail out about, we're just gonna ram the ramparts on the 20th. We're gonna stage a coup on the after that conversation starts, after the last one, they're going to stop the certifications and the alternate electors and all that kind of stuff. After this, always.
Thing-a-lings.
Oy, God. So, after, in the next phase of it, let's hop on in the middle of the week or something if you have time. We'll figure out a time where you can just come on and we'll just chit-chat. Be lovely. Do something
about
silly.
Nonsense.
Seriously.
Who needs it?
Yes, and I will be on at 6 o'clock Eastern time today on all the channels as well, because I'm going to stream again later this afternoon to deal with some of the backlog.
You're unstoppable.
No, I'm unflappable. You know what my favorite thing about the movie Unstoppable with Denzel Washington and whoever else was that, Chris Pine?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The train movie
Mm-hmm.
called Unstoppable. Spoiler alert.
No.
Yeah.
Don't say it.
Yeah. They stop it. It was stopped.
What?
They stop. Yeah. Now I would argue, you know what was unstoppable? Silver Streak.
It was. Silver Streak. It just kept going.
They didn't stop it. It crashed right through the station.
Yep.
Yeah, they didn't stop it.
Silver Streak.
It crashed. I'm just saying. Eastern time for 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock Pacific. Thanks, guys. The chat room's like, where and when and who?
All right, Hal, I'm going to run.
Yeah, I'll let you go. Cheers, and I'll sign everybody off. Appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much. Okay. Cheers. Bye. 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 See you later. He freezes and it goes away. Hi, guys. Hi, chat room. There you go. Ba-doom. And then we'll do this. And then, so I'm going to sign off a little early today because we did a full show and we had a guest and everything. I mean, really? Look at that. Me with a guest and everything. It was lovely. A great Saturday. Oh, yes, absolutely. Richard McNeil. There will be dancing in the street. Can you imagine what this summer is going to be like? Twitch doesn't like what? Doesn't like it when you stream on YouTube at the same time and Twitch at the same... Oh. They do? Well, I don't stream as a game channel. So, yeah. That might be why they don't care. But the main channel is Twitch. The others are just backups. That's how it works. Camden is lovely and beautiful and smart and terrific. How your Facebook today was full of nasty trolls. I know. I tried to broom a couple of them out. But, you know, I have to... Does anybody know how to set up moderators on Facebook? I have not had any luck. And I'm taking volunteers. If we can do that. So, think of Hal's list for 3. Thanks, Rocky Mountain Mike. I knew you would. Block parties. Right. I'd steal an election as in voting, then yeah. Huh? I see. Yes, vanilla ice, not iced tea. Yes. Yes, I will be live streaming Wednesday. It's taking too long for his presidents to get here. Imagine how they feel. Yeah. In your Facebook page as an admin setting? Yeah, I tried to find that in part of it, but it has to be set up individually each time, which seems like ridiculous. Oh, Jamie, I'm sorry. Did I? Did it go by? I beg your pardon. Hold on one second. There's Jay, and then... Oh, Jamie, thank you. Hey, Al, thanks for singing Going Blind on John's show. Thanks, Jamie. Absolutely. Next thing, you're going to ask me to sing Radioactive the next time I'm on there. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of nasty people on Facebook, but I don't... you have to understand that while you read their stuff and while it goes through, that they're not really people. I don't mean to dehumanize them or anything like that. I mean, literally, the majority of the Facebook trolls are paid bots. They do it for a living. That's why, you know, their grammar is horrendous, but it's actually pretty good if you understand that English is like their third language and that they're largely cutting and pasting. No, Radioactive by Gene Simmons off his solo record. Yeah, trolls can be fun sometimes, though. You know, that's the thing. Oh, the Cash App thing. I didn't set one up yet, but I did look into it. So we'll do that piece by piece, and I appreciate you even asking again. Thank you. I just haven't put it where the Venmo thing can happen and all that kind of stuff. But I appreciate that so much. And thank you guys for the Venmo support as well. Bless you. I went the entire show without doing any of the ad stuff I'm supposed to do to promote the show and make sure. So, and thanks again for all the people who joined us via Patreon. Amazing. I can't tell you. We've done this week, by the way. Finally, the scripts are going out to people who have earned them via being patrons at those levels. So I'm very excited about that. Summer's helping me out. I did sing with the lead singer of Styx. That is true. But the only downside was, and there is no downside when you get to sing with Dennis DeYoung, except for the fact that I also am a huge Tommy Shaw fan. And in many ways, my favorite Styx song, I mean, it's a tough one, but Renegade, I mean, is just I love that song. Like, as 70s classic rock goes, that's it. Whoa, mama, I'm in fear for my life from the long arm of the law. Lawman is coming down from the gallows and I don't have very long. I love that. Yeah. So, yes, too much time on your hands? Yeah, absolutely, Milkman Norm. That's another one. Yeah. No, when I sang Lady, when you're with me, I'm smiling. That, you know, and Come Sail Away and Mr. Roboto. Give me your love, your hands build me up when I'm sinking. Just touch me and my troubles all fade. Right? There you go. Good Lord, man. That's the other thing. Can I just say that yeah, the pile of stuff. There we go. Sorry, clicked off on there. Thanks. You know, I'm very proud. The Youth Gone Wild is that's actually the first time I sang on stage with Steel Panther, and they realized I could sing. Because I should go on The Voice. Yeah, nah, they wouldn't have me. It's like Masked Singer. They won't have me because everybody knows I can sing. So everybody's like, it's probably Sparks. It sounds too good. It's probably Sparks. So that's true. That's actually word on the street. Yes, be well. I'm going to come back later on, so I'll sign off. You're fooling yourself. You don't believe. Yeah. Babe, I'm leaving. I must be on my way. The time is drawing near. Right? All right. Yeah, what I would want to do is go on The Masked Singer and sing in a bunch of different voices. So that would throw everybody, but now they would know that. So they would go, he's bad. It sounds exactly like Brian Johnson from AC/DC or Tom Kiefer from Cinderella or Sebastian Bach. Or I'll go on and do a bunch of sound-alikes. And, you know, and they'll go, wait a minute. It's probably a comedian. Right. And the other problem that I have, and it's a challenge, I recognize, is all of my credits aren't obscure. So when they make jokes about them, like Talk and Soup and Queer as Folk and Lab Rats, like there's an element of like, oh yeah, well that's it. There's only one that. That's it. Yeah. So do sticks with different accents. Right. Thanks so much, guys. I will see you guys later on today at 3. I'm definitely going to sign up for that. I'm going to do the Midwestern goodbye and be here all day. I just know it. But you guys are fantastic. I'll see you guys at 3, my time. Cheers. Have fun. Take care of yourself and take care of someone else. And I'll see you at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Figure it out on your own.